Good afternoon, everyone. We're you're here for our Lunch and Learn presentation today. I'm going to be introducing our speaker, and the topic of today's presentation is documenting your work, phone first photo, video, and audio for conservation teams. Our speaker is Dave Grenier. He is a New England native. He's from Massachusetts originally. He has gone to school at Full Sail University in Florida it's an entertainment school, and he learned all about graphic design. He's lived in California, and now he's back in New England. He's a one-man show. He works to help conservation groups be good stewards and have tools to document and protect conservation. So with that, I'm going to let Dave move forward, and I hope you enjoy the day. Your questions will be answered periodically throughout the presentation.
Okay, thanks so much, Dorothy. Okay, so give me just a second. I'm going to share my screen and I have my presentation here. Give me just a sec. Too many windows popping up here. Okay, everybody can see everything okay?
That's good.
Okay, perfect. Hi, okay, everybody. I'm Dave Grenier, like Dorothy said, and we're here for documenting your work. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments, and we'll make sure that we get to them. We can stop when we're going through this. If you have a really burning question, raise your hand, and then we can actually have a vocal discussion. So without further ado, this is the title slide. Everybody loves the title slide. So who am I? She already went over this, but I'm a photo and video storyteller. And so I'm helping conservation teams document their work across New England. I love New England. It's my home, and I'm happy to be back. And so what is 124 Productions? This is the vehicle that I use for storytelling. It's the company that I have created, where I turn the mission-driven work into stories people can connect with. I have a lot of history with public engagement, especially out in California. Carried that over to here a bit. Um, so why document at all? You already know the answer to this, but we're just going to kind of briefly go over this. So you need the proof, whether there's liability or public engagement or grant writing. You need to have the proof, and then the trust comes with that. So if you need to have donors or community can see your impact without them actually being there, and then momentum is built from sharing the record that helps training. So if you have somebody else coming on board, they don't have to actually have been there. They can see, oh, we did this. You'll see a public paddle that I'm going to show you as an example. And they can see, oh, I know this is coming up later on this year. What does it actually look like? Well, this is what we did last year, and having a good public record of it. And that helps with the continuity and the onboarding, so it's not such a struggle. All right. So just remember, part of the reason why I wanted to do this with your phone is because everybody has their phone. And it's right in your pocket. You don't have to think about it. And you can get pretty darn good results just with your phone without any training. And that was actually one of the things later on in the presentation. We're going to go over some of the survey results. And everybody was working off their phone. So no big surprise there. One thing is we're aiming for clear, not cinematic. Don't worry about being super fancy. You just want to just get it in the can, as we say. So the mindset, you're going to see this twice, this slide here. And so media is field notes. So if you have photography, obviously it's worth 1,000 words. And done is better than perfect. That's something that we say in the media industry as a good mantra, but good enough beats perfect when it helps you keep moving. So don't get hung up on the details. Don't stress. You guys are doing your work. You don't need to focus so much on photos, but you need to take them. It's a necessary evil. So time box it. You want to aim for 5 minutes rather than 50 minutes. Don't think about, okay, I'm collecting water samples, for example. You need to focus on collecting the water samples, but maybe 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after, or maybe if there's a point where you're rowing in the canoe, you go over and you take 5 minutes worth of photography or video, and And then you can check it off your list. You don't have to worry about it again because then you can focus on the work that you need to do. Um, and so you're time boxing it. You're collecting the evidence. So this adds the context for your story. Think about all of this as storytelling. We're going to kind of talk about that a little bit as we go through here. But no matter how humdrum your work might seem to the public, potentially, um, there's a story to be told. So we just want to make sure that even though you're going through and just taking analytical data, a lot of times there's a story to that. So context, action, detail, result, and keep it repeatable so that you don't have to think about it too much. You want to make this as rote as possible. And then think of one human moment. And so a quick line from a person turns into proof into a story. But even if it's just a photo and you don't have a video of somebody saying something, can you take a photo of maybe it's just you out there taking those water samples? Take a selfie and, you with the boat and the water, and saying, oh, hey, I'm out here. It's just me in the hot sun, but doing the good work or something along those lines. But a human moment will create that connection for not just social media, but also for grant proposals. Okay. So field proof checklist. There's 5 shots, excuse me. 5 shots that you want to think about. And if you only think about 2, just think about these ones in orange. So your wide shot and your medium shot. So I'm going to show examples of all of these. So you don't have to worry about writing this down. You can. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. If anybody wants this presentation to refer back to later, my contact is at the end, and I'll be happy to send this to anybody that wants it. So 5 shots. So you have your wide shot. This is the establishing shot. Where are we and what are we looking at? Because but somebody who's not from the area has no idea what's going on. Medium shot. So this is focused more on something specific. So if you only get 2 shots, get these. And if you only get 1 shot, get the medium shot. And I'll show you that in a second. So close shot. So you have wide, medium, and close. And this is an impact shot that's showing more detail. Number 4 is people moment, a face or a person, an interaction or a reaction. And then the results, the finished state. What's it look like now afterwards? The other half of this result is having maybe a wide or a medium, but the pre-existing conditions. What was it like before you got there, or what was the situation? Why that helps to show the story from start to finish, and then help you make more of an impact with your story. So just a quick pro tip, hold each shot still for 3 seconds before and after. It makes editing painless. So if you were to take your phone and hold it up and click it and just pull it back down, there's a high likelihood that it's going to be a little bit blurrier. Whereas if you hold it up and then you click it and then still hold it for a couple seconds in case that there's some a little bit of lag in your photo, especially if it's low light, your camera will have a tendency to lag just a little bit. So you don't want it to be blurry as you're pulling it back down. So even if you only have time for 1 shot, give it 6 seconds at least on front and back in total. Sorry, 3 seconds to the front, the click, 3 seconds afterwards. Okay, so here's an example of a wide shot. Where are we and what are we looking at? So we have, there's obviously a speaker, and then you have a whole big group of people doing some talking. And then after this, we have a medium. So this is where I was saying, if you only had time for 1 shot, a medium is a little bit more impactful than the wide, because you can see we're down in with the people. You could do a medium shot from higher up like I had previously. See if I can go back. Yeah. So you could do a medium if I was to pull in here and zoom in with my lens. On your phones, you'll see, typically, it depends on the model that you have. You'll see a 1x, which is just your base camera. And then you'll have, let's just say 2 or 3x, and then a 5x and an 8x or whatever. You want to use those X numbers versus pinching and zooming. This is a big, big thing. If you pinch and zoom, you're going to do a digital zoom, which is going to not be a high quality, not as high quality as if you pinch and zoom three times, or to make it the equivalent of a 3x or zoomed in three times, it's not going to be nearly as good as if you just hit that 3x button. So just try to default to those that you see on there. If you only have a 1x, then by all means, go ahead and pinch zoom. But if you have those options, um, then try to use them. So then we have a few more wides versus mediums. So this is one of those shots where you have the wide shot. This is a sign up table for an event. This is a Blackstone Watershed Collaborative public paddle that happened in 2024. So you're going to see a number of shots from this. And this was one of the sign up tables. So you can see all their very cool graphic um, handout pieces. And so you want to think about doing these wide shots over here on the left. And then again, if you have something specific that you want to show, you can see these kind of the impact that a medium shot makes versus a wide. But this is a good establishing shot. Again, same thing. So there's a wide shot here, and then this medium shot helps tell this story a lot. I feel more intimately. You have this child here that's a little bit out of focus. You can see everybody's paying attention to this gentleman in the paddle. He's showing people he's doing um, a safety talk on how to paddle properly and then what to do if things go bad. But just by having this, you have a good piece of storytelling. Again, wide shot here, and then a medium. Could be argued that this is a close up, but I'm calling this a medium because it's not a close up of the bridge. That's not what we're looking at. You can see here, this is a wide shot, and right here, you see that little yellow bit right there. That's the brown, I think it says brown crew on it. Um, Having that to show this story of this is the end of the paddle, and then zooming in and saying this is a little bit more impactful. This framing that you can see here, we won't get too deep into this, but this is if you have most phones actually have this capability where you can have these little grids on your interface, and there's all sorts of different grids you can have, but there's a 9 squares, and so it's called the rule of thirds, and so you can see that this goes over here, and so this goes right through the middle of the top third, and you could draw another imaginary line here and then one here and one here. That creates some aesthetically pleasing elements. Don't stress over that. Don't even worry too much about that. But if you really wanted to get into it, that's one of the things that we can talk about, which we're actually going to talk about later because somebody asked the question about how to do that, how to take aesthetically pleasing photos for construction. Okay. So then we have another wide shot. This is a loosestrife pole, the invasive species. We had some volunteers over here in Worcester. And so this is Katie from the city of Worcester. She's in the Lakes and Ponds program. She was kind of running this whole shindig and telling people what we're looking for. And so this was part of the storytelling element of we have people here. The wide shot does show, it's not part of the focus, but it does show in the background some of the tools. Now, nobody's really going to be paying attention to that so much, but it is one of those things that you can kind of think about while you're out there when you're taking a wide shot. Can you incorporate that? And if you have the space for it, like there's a lot of space around here. And so I was able to make sure that the whole thing was in the shot rather than half the bucket being cut off. That's another aesthetically pleasing thing. Again, nothing to stress over. The important bit of information is right here, which is why when we pulled in a little bit for the medium shot, you can see that. I would have preferred if I had a little bit more space so that this gentleman wasn't cut off as much. But again, it's not a big deal, so don't stress. A close shot. This is number 3 here. This is the loosestrife, and this is the stuff that we were really trying to pay attention to taking out. So this shows the problem, and so this is a good impactful shot. if you're going to share in social media or again in grants, whatever it is that you're trying to get these photos for, to show this is what the issue is and this is what we need to tackle. And this is, I think, this is a really good, powerful image when it comes to storytelling, because without the last one was just a nice picture. Nobody would really know that that's an invasive species. But this here, if someone were to look at this with no other context, they could see, okay, well, they're throwing this away for some reason, but I don't know why. And then they can dig into your context that you add to the image. So you want to think about doing images something similar to this that can convey what your story is without any words or very few words. So people moments, those are the next ones up. Um, these work best with medium or close shots because you get the person as the focal point doing their work. So this is a gentleman that was down um, in the wetland here, and he was pulling up some stuff. I specifically did not want to show his face fully, and you'll see that in the next one too. And there's another one later on. It's a good idea in general not to show people's faces where you can, depending if you want to show a person's reaction and they're smiling and that's great, show it. But maybe that person is fine with you taking their photo in the moment, but then later on they say, "Oh, I don't like how I looked," um, or maybe it's an employee that leaves the company or the organization, and you want to be able to still use that shot because it's a wonderful hero shot. It's on your website all over the place, and maybe that person left not on the greatest of circumstances, so you don't want to have to go dig through and pull down every instance of them. So if you have the mental capacity to think about, let me wait till they turn their head a little bit, go ahead and do it, but don't stress. So that's next one. This is a really good shot. This is from the public paddle again, from Blackstone. And so this is just showing some of their branding, which helps to tell the story. We don't really, without the context, we don't know why they're in a pub and just sitting around talking, but it does kind of help tell the story. And at very least, this is a really cool shot, especially if this was vertical. And so you would just see just this here right in the middle, and that would be a really good Instagram shot, for example. This, though it is a wonderful photograph, this is one of my favorite photographs, especially from the day, because from a photographer's perspective, the lighting was just perfect. It was just beautiful. There was a skylight that was coming in, and it added some great dynamic lighting to this scene. And though it is a people moment and these guys were involved in the paddle, there's no context to help tell that story. So these could just be two guys having a drink together, and that's it. Now, if you want to share that for your uh, for your story, then that's fine, but you need to add a lot more context when it comes to this. So just, it's a great shot, but no project context. You just kind of want to think about that. You're not always going to have project context. Sometimes it's just going to be telling the story of like, hey, these two guys, are having a beer afterwards. And, that was part of the story was that they ended the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative ended at Narragansett Brew House, I think it was called. So that could be part of it, thanks to Narragansett. But this is another people moment. This is a great one. This is showing a reaction. This is someone at a public meeting, and she's from the Friends of Patch Reservoir, and they were talking about this guy. They were doing like a lottery, like guess when he's going to fall into the ice, and so this has a nice little story to it without having to add really any context. Um, Public meetings are difficult with your phone only because it's usually low lighting, so you want to keep that in mind. Um, the better the lighting, the better the photo is going to be. Um, on a lot of phones, I have more experience with iPhones than anything. There's going to be a default if there's low lighting. There's a little long exposure thing that'll pop up. At least on the iPhone, it's up on the left hand side, and it looks like this little half moon thing. You don't want that to go because what's going to happen, you might have run into this, you click the button and then it takes a while. It takes about 1 to 3 seconds, depending on what your setting is. And that's going to create blurriness if there's any sort of movement. So just turn that off. It's better to have a darker image and then in post production or on your phone afterwards, edit it just to be a little bit brighter. I've seen that happen a lot. So an image like this is also very good, very powerful. There's a lot going on in this image that keeps it nice and interesting. We already know exactly what this is. It's the state of the lakes and ponds in 2024. And then we have a group of people here that were part of the public meeting. They're not really in focus because they're not the focus of this image. It's really supposed to be, um, the title here and then the folks over here. And this, if you don't know, this is Mayor Petty from the city of Worcester, and this is Katie again from the city of Worcester. So they were having this was a good shot to show kind of high profile person attending and being like, hey, this guy took the time out to help with our program. So it's not all about the high profile people, as we know, but sometimes it's good to get that. So there's a lot going on in this image. Um, uh, to the aesthetically pleasing side of things, if when you take a photo with your phone, you want to click on the point that you want uh, to focus on, and then you'll see this little box pop up, and it'll kind of like focus on that side. Um, if you have something in the foreground here that's blurry, you might have seen that in a couple of the other shots. It helps to create depth to the image. You'll often see the reverse of that, which is the photo, which I think I have one, not the next one, but I have another one that's coming up later, where you have that, we call it bokeh or bokeh, depending on who you talk to, that blurriness in the background. Um, it's just as powerful if you have it in the foreground. It adds that depth. There's actually 3 levels of depth here. You have this really, really blurry in the front, then a little bit of blurry right here where these folks are, and then it's clear in the back. So adding that depth is helpful. Don't stress on it. There's different tips and ways to get that, but I don't want to overwhelm you. And so again, another person moment. Oh, here's a foreground shot again. You can see it adds a little bit of interest here. Not necessary, but again, her face is covered, and I waited for her face to go down because I also didn't have for this particular. We didn't really need it. It was kind of a is part of the initial sign up process. But when you're taking photos of people, especially volunteers, you want to make sure that there's something in the sign up sheet that says, I agree to having my image taken and shared in perpetuity. You want to make sure, especially if they're children, if there's children, you need to make sure that you have their parents' consent. And sometimes people will change their mind later on. So don't be surprised by that. So like I said, just a little bit of extra insurance if you don't have their faces. Now, I know that I said same angle if possible to show the result, but this is a powerful image, and you don't always have the luxury of having the same angle. So this is a drone shot of this gentleman here was doing all this section right over here, just above the boardwalk. We had another gentleman in here, and then we had a team of people along the water's edge. And so you can see there's no purple in here. This was taken almost a year later, and there's no purple loosestrife. I have even closer shots, but I thought that this was a better shot to just kind of show the overall. So great job for the folks that were doing the weed pulling. So the simple workflow. Um, don't overthink editing. Make it simple. Keep it simple, silly. Make it usable and share it. So capture, use the 5-shot checklist that we just talked about. Hold still for 3 seconds. Like I said, 3 seconds, take the shot, 3 seconds, and then record. I know we didn't really talk about video. Video doesn't come across on these live streams very well. It gets very choppy. So I kept it to photos. Plus, most people are taking photos and they don't really have the capacity to edit a video. But if you do take the recording of a video, 2 things. One, make sure that you record at least 15 seconds. I've seen a lot of times where people will record, they'll pull up their phone, they'll record for 3 seconds and then put it back down. You have 1 second of it coming up, and then 1 second that's usable, and then 1 second of it getting blurry again. Um, it's better to have 15 seconds. It's better to have one 15-second clip of somebody saying something or you showing, I don't know, a duck going by when you're pulling weeds. I don't know what it is that you want to share, but it's better to have 15 seconds full of that and to just be stationary. Don't don't be moving your phone around too much. It's better to have one stable shot. And if you notice that sorry, I don't want to block my voice. If you notice that your framing isn't perfect, leave it where it is, unless you can get that 15 seconds in your new frame, because it's better to have uh, a, a frame that's not perfect but stationary than one that moves around and now you only have 3 seconds that you can possibly pull from because it gets a little too wobbly. So labeling, this actually is going to be very important. This is probably one of the most important based off of people's feedback from the survey. Um, you want to have the way that I work it is one folder per project. So uh, you I'll go over this in a second. So you have one folder per project, date and location, and then maybe one sentence note if you have a note, uh, like a text document or something in that same folder. I like to do that where I have one folder. So, for example, Blackstone Watershed Collaborative, I have a master folder for them. And then in that, I'll have different events. And so for the public paddle, that's public paddle 2024 or public paddle, because I know it happens more than once. And in there, I'll open up the public paddle folder, and then there's 2024. And then in that is the photos, or are the photos that I have taken. And then in there, if I have any specific notes, I'll create just a text document. It doesn't even have to be a Word document, just plain text, just to give some context to the photos or to talk about what went right, what went wrong, what were some challenges, or things to keep in mind, like maybe a link to it would have to be rich text, but a link to um, maybe wherever you're saving um, the forms, the form waivers, photo waivers, some sort of information, because you might not be the one that accesses those photos later. Maybe it's somebody else from your team in 5 years or in 6 months. You want them to have some context to, like, oh, hey, don't use these photos, or I mean, you don't want to save those photos if you don't want to use them. You don't want other people to use them, but you get my point. So having some sort of note in there can help dramatically, especially later on, which we're going to get to with the court thing. So the naming convention. This is something that I have developed over the course of many, 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 many photographs and losing photos, but no more. So the way that I work it is I use an organization or a project. So in this case, Blackstone Watershed Collaborative, BWC, dash paddle. So I know that it's one of the paddle events, dash, and then I put the date, and then the dash with the image number. When you take a photo on your phone, it's going to be some variation of IMG for image 97362, whatever the number is in the sequence. So this would be the 0370. I have this do this on all of my photos. It's much simpler if you use something like Lightroom, which is a little bit of a learning curve. But what you can do is when you import your photos, would you plug in your phone, or if you have AirDrop, for
Dave, can you speak? I can't hear you.
You might have to leave and come back. That happened to me earlier today. Still can't hear you.
If everyone could just stay on, we'll see whether we can fix things on our end.
Yeah, I think he'll come back.
You want to pause the recording? All right.
Great.
Okay. I don't know. My screen went black for half a second and then that was it. Okay, so what was the last thing that you guys heard?
Numbers,
Numbers.
names.
Okay. All right.
So
So let me
light, you were recommending, or there was a learning curve with Lightbox or Lightroom.
Lightroom. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you didn't really lose much. I just hit a send request for sharing
Yep.
again. So there we go. Not everything works perfectly all the time, but we got it. Okay. So can you see my screen now again?
Yes.
Okay. So so Lightroom is what I recommend. There's a little bit of a learning curve. But when you import your photos, when you bring them onto your computer, you can tell Lightroom, rename all of these photos, and you can create a prefix for it. So in this case, it's everything before this last dash. And so that way, I have a sequence number, but they all get assigned this. And whatever it is that you want for your naming convention, you can have that. Where this might fall apart a little bit is if you do it one way and then you hire somebody and they don't do it quite the same way. Even when it comes to, I use the dashes, and then when it comes to date, I use the underscores to show that they're part of the same thing. That's just my way of doing it, but um, there's searchability within Lightroom. But even if you were to move these out of Lightroom after you import them, they'll always have this name attached to them. So you could share them in Google Drive or Dropbox or internally. And you could do a search on your computer that says, oh, I know it was a paddle event. So just write in paddle and everything from paddle will pop up. And then you'll say, oh, yeah, there it is. It's from 2024. I know it was the 2024 event, or is the older one. So it's a nice, easy way to find your photos and share your photos. They also have things called digital asset managers. I've used FileCamp in the past. I'm happy with it, but it's expensive. I think it's $60 a month. And so that gets pretty spicy. Lightroom, you can there's a photography package that you can get through different places, B&H Photo Video, Amazon. They're legitimate little serial cards. They look kind of like a gift card, or you'll just get a code and you can get Lightroom and Photoshop. I think it was $120 per year, which $10 a month. So that's that's pretty reasonable. And if you went through the Adobe Creative Cloud to actually subscribe and get the monthly, it's much more expensive than that. They do have nonprofit um, special pricing for schools and for nonprofits. So you could also do that if you needed the full suite for whatever reason. But I would suggest something like Lightroom because you can rename all these things very quickly and easily. You can say, okay, do this thing. I want you to save it here. And then you can walk away and go get yourself a coffee. Speaking of which. Okay. And so you need to share somewhere, wherever you're sharing, social media or in even just internally. Um, when you do the video, if you have time, just trim the ends, just the front and the back. And you don't have to worry too much about if you're recording that duck that's going across the screen. Just take out the bits that are kind of bumpy when you're first pulling your phone up. Um, and that'll read much, much better when people are actually looking at it. So add a title and basic context. So this is, again, wherever it is. So if you have a text document within the folder and just, let's see, do I have, no, I don't, not the next one. Just to give people some understanding of what it is that that's going on in that image, and then send to your comms person. If you happen to be lucky enough to actually have a comms person on your team, send it over to them. They know what to do. If that comms person is you, then you can decide what else you want to do with it. Again, you can share through Digital Asset Manager. You can use um, Dropbox and Google Drive and things like that. I would over Google Drive, just to give you a heads up, and some of you may know this already, but deep in their terms and conditions, most cloud services, when you upload something to them, you're giving them the right to use the photos how they see fit. And so they can use them for marketing. Nowadays, they can use them for AI training. I'm not sure so much about something like Dropbox, because Dropbox is more of a professional tool and you have to pay for it more. So like that. So I think you're covered just by using the more professional tool versus something that where it's really cheap or free. Um, so just keep that in mind. But the digital asset manager is good for more things than just photos. You can upload all sorts of files up into that and tag things and share them with your team. So if you did want to get into something a little more robust, the dams are great, but they are more expensive. So let's talk about the survey results. Now, at the time that I took these screenshots, we only had 6 responses. So I would love to hear what people are having their challenges with. So here's the form, and you can go over to that. That was the shortest version I could get. So you can, if you want to take it, um, I think Dorothy or Michelle, maybe you could share it in the, I don't know if you still have it, if we could just throw it in the comment section. If we can't, that's okay. But if you want
Find
this,
it.
then
Yep.
you did. Okay, great. Yeah, go ahead and I'll keep updating my information um, to try to help everybody a little bit more. But these are some of the initial results. So what do you use the most to take pictures? The phone. That was it. Phone, and the blue and the purple, they're both phone. Someone wrote in phone and DSLR. So, or yeah, anyway. So we have that. Where do you most need to use your photos or videos? It's pretty evenly split. There's a couple people that chose we keep them for our records, but we have reports or grant application, slides for public meetings, website or social media, and we don't use them yet. So very honest, very cool. So what is the single biggest hurdle for you right now? Not sure how to organize or share the files. So we just kind of went over that. We have the red one was not sure what to take pictures and video of. Hopefully, we kind of answered that a little bit. Not enough time. Totally get it. Totally get that. But again, just try to make it as quick as you can, even if it's one shot, and just maybe as you're moving. Getting permission and privacy concerns. Yeah, 100%. When in doubt, don't take any photos. But you can have a form that has a liability release. And that's something that we can talk about later on if people need verbiage for that. I've done that before. So which quick how-to would help you most right now? So taking clearer pictures outdoors. Um, and we kind of talked about that a little bit. Getting steadier video clips. Again, just holding it up. Little quick tip on that. You can, with one hand, everybody can see that? Yeah, okay. I'm using one hand, but you can see I have these 2 fingers here. This takes a little bit of practice, okay? So I have my index finger and my pinky holding on to it from the top and the bottom, and then that's just holding it. And then you can even just use your thumb on the back end here. And so that's just one. And then you can just kind of stabilize it a little bit more with the other photo, and then you click the button with your thumb, the photo or video or whatever it is. And that gives you a ton of stabilization. If you feel like that's still not enough, if you tuck in your elbows and you hold it, you become a human tripod. So that's a really good way to take video. Okay, let's see. So here we go. Okay, so we have getting clear sound for short interviews. That was something that I didn't really get into here, but the best way for clean sound is something like a lavalier mic, which is just one of those little microphones that you plug in and put on. Not everybody has that. So we're talking just about phones. Make sure that the phone is pointed towards your subject and try not to have them in a small enclosed room, because that'll bounce things around unless you have, you know, things on the walls or maybe curtains, because that'll kind of absorb some of the sound. That helps a lot. There's so much to do with audio. When it comes to video, audio is more important than video quality, especially for interviews. Um, okay, so then we have a simple way to name and save files so we can find them later. So yeah, we went over that. Making photos and videos fit nicely into a report or a slide. That's it depends on the slide presentation software that you're using. Some of them you can do um, masking, essentially, where you crop it and it you just show just a portion of it. But if you're talking about file sizes, because sometimes your photo is going to be very big, as far as like it could be a 50 megabyte file. If you're shooting in something it's called RAW, gives you the most um, information in the photo so that you can do the most with it versus a JPEG. But you can save out in something like Lightroom. You can make any edits if you want to make edits, and you could just export it and then say, I want this to be, half the quality, or I want it to be this size. And that helps dramatically with file sizes. It kind of optimizes things. So those are the results. We do have some questions that were from that survey. So we're going to run through those. So this is a pain point for a lot of us. Running an event and being the one to take photos and videos too. I hear that. So one of the things that I would recommend is crowdsourcing. Tell everybody there before you get started. When you're standing up at the podium, you say, hey, everybody, just before we get started, if you have any photos of this event, please send them to me. I have a link for a Dropbox, and I'd love to potentially use some of these for our social media, whatever it is. The people that are there are more than likely happy to be a part of the process. So you could try that. You can try doing the self-record and photograph 5 minutes before and after. So when you're not in the meat and the crux of it, then it depends on what you're trying to get out of those photos and videos. That's really at the end of the day what it's all about. Try doing it just before, just after, and just having some quick context. Just before you start, you're standing at the podium, you take a photo of everybody there and just say, this is the awesome people that came out to hear about what's going on. And then the other thing is a GoPro or something like it. I would recommend a name brand, so GoPro or maybe DJI. They have, you can set them up. You can set them up with something like this. This looks scary, but it's not. It's just a little clamp here. And then you can just do all sorts of shapes with it, and you can have it hang on the edge of a door, of a table, and you can have this. This is what the GoPro goes into, and then you just point it and you just hit record, and then it'll just record for however long. And you can even record up to 4K if you wanted to, and they record for quite a while. And yeah, it all depends on how big your SD card is that's in it. Higher is better. Not all SD cards are created equal, but don't stress on that too much. Again, if you have specific questions about that stuff, feel free to email me. But one thing to note is if you're creating a cloud drive for sharing with the people to get the crowdsourced photos, make sure to allow everyone to edit. I've seen this a number of times. When you share a link, make sure that it's available to anyone with the link. Different programs, Google Drive will say it a little bit different than Dropbox does. But the way you can test it is go into a private window. So if you're using Firefox, for example, open up Firefox, then click on the icon again for Firefox and say open in private window, paste in that link. If you can see the folder structure for that, great, you're good. But if you paste in that link and it says you need to log in, then you haven't made it public. So if you do the crowdsourcing, just make sure that everybody can actually upload to it. Okay, so the next one. Need photos that document current conditions and can be used in court in the next 20 years. Yeah. So the pre-existing conditions are key. That's for anybody, not just for court stuff in 20 years, but um, any level of insurance, and especially insurance. Like, this is how we found the location, and it also becomes good marketing material because then you show the final, and a lot of you are already doing that, where it's like, this is what we saw, this is how we left it. But that's just, I just want to mention that that's huge and something that's very easy to overlook when you're just trying to get going and just trying to get to do the work. But the naming convention and file structure that I mentioned, that's key. That is 100%. If you're looking in 20 years, you need something that is going to, you'll be able to say, oh, it's a paddle event. All right, let me just do the little search and just type paddle. And you can even, depending on your computer, you can search specific folders or specific hard drives. And so you know that, you know, you could also search based off of the date if you know that it was the date. But anyway, um, having the ability to search for things that just come to mind, like paddle or BWC or whatever it is, that makes sense to you, because you're not going to remember exactly where it was. So this is a long one, but I want to bring it up because I'm sure many of you have run into this. So, tips for file management. The easiest way to transfer photos from my phone to my organization's filing system is by uploading them using the OneDrive app. This automatically uploads files in HEIC format, which adds the annoying extra step of converting to JPEG to use the photos for anything. The alternative, which is actually a pretty good workaround, the alternative is sending them to myself through Teams, which automatically converts to JPEG. Then I have to download them and upload them to our file system. Why is this so hard? So the next page, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. It's 3 steps, super simple. HEIC or HEIF. Those are for high efficiency. That's what the HE stands for. It's an Apple specific thing. So if you have an iPhone, it's going to want to default to HE, high efficiency. And high efficiency is great if you're trying to save space, but not if you're trying to share anything. So you want to go over into settings and scroll down to camera. So there's this guy right here. Next step, select formats. Boom, there you go. And then change the high efficiency to most compatible. And that's it. And that's going to change it over to JPEG. And you'll see it here, at least on mine, is H.264, which is just an MP4 file, which is, both of those are universal. So if you want the little extra pro tip, you'll see on my screen here, Pro RAW and resolution control. Pro default. So if you shoot in RAW, that's the thing that gives you way more information. So if you have a bright sunny day and you're trying to take a photo kind of like in the shadow a little bit, like maybe there's a little bit of an understory, maybe you're underneath some trees, but it's still bright. If you have a lot of brightness and kind of some darkness too, you can shoot in RAW, which gives you a lot more flexibility so that you don't have, the sky isn't what we call blown out. It's not just like super white, or super dark in the shadows. It is a much bigger file though. So just be aware, if you don't know exactly what you're doing with the edit or how to export it afterwards, you might not want to get into shooting RAW, but just know that that's a function that you can have. So the other one was photos that show in action. This is the other question. The last one, photos that show in action, construction, people, etc., and are aesthetically engaging. Now, I'm a little biased in this because these are my photos, but I think that they're aesthetically engaging. So we have here this guy, this construction worker, he's working on a form and he's smoothing things out. Again, we have the foreground here is blurry, and then we have the background is also blurry. It would work without the blurry foreground, but I do like that it adds a little bit of extra visual interest whenever you have blurriness on the things that don't really matter but add a little bit of context. You have the cement truck over here in the background. You have this other guy here adding a little bit of color and visual interest, and it kind of breaks up the background a little bit. They're not important, so we want to have them blurry. So what you do is, you on your phone, you'll hit that little focal point on the guy's face, and and then you take your shot. Now, to get the most, how do I put this? To get more blurriness, you want to step back and zoom in with your phone. So that's where the 2x or 4x, 5x, whatever you have for zoom, that's where those come in really handy, because the more zoom you have, the more it compresses the image, so the more blur you're going to have on things that are not your subject. Just know that when you zoom in, a little bit of shake with your fingers is going to show up a lot more. So especially if you're doing video, that's going to be kind of jarring if you're a little too shaky. So don't zoom in maybe too much. This is not going to be a very safe shot, depending on the situation. You also need OSHA certification for this, but you can see this is just an interesting wide angle shot that not a lot of people have experienced. They've never been in this position. So a wide angle shot, again, on your phones, a lot of times you'll see something that says 0.5 instead of 1x, 2x, it'll say 0.5x. That opens up the viewpoint so that things look a little bit longer. You can see a lot more in the view. And that's what this is. This is a wide angle shot. So that can create a lot of visual interest. And then this is just another good shot. This looks even better when it's bigger, but you can see a lot going on here. This is the conduit that they were putting down and in, and it gives a little bit of the story of what's going on. Again, same thing. So you have, this is a lot being told in this one story. This was at an airport, and you got a gentleman up here that's doing some work. And then you have this ladder that was a little bit of visual interest to break things up a little bit. And it's not perfectly symmetrical. And then you just have a generalized shot here of someone doing the work. And I think that that's going to be something that a lot of you are going to want to take shots of people actually getting ready to do the work or doing the work itself. And then this is, you can see it's definitely a construction site with this context here. But then you can also do these little shots here where it's highly focused on something. You don't know what it is. You got a guy in the background, but this is a very interesting, engaging shot, especially on social media, because it is something a little bit different. It's down low. It's hyper focused on this little connector here, but there's a lot of blurriness going on in the background. So that kind of that forced focus on something with the blurriness or the bokeh, that helps a lot with aesthetically pleasing things. So once again, I told you you'd see this again. It's an important mindset. So media is field notes. So that helps a lot, especially when you don't need to remember or you don't want to write down everything shot for every little detail. You can just take the photo and then do it all back at your home base. Good enough is better, beats perfect. It helps you keep moving. Time box it. Again, 5 minutes rather than 50. Collect evidence, context, action, detail, result. Keep it repeatable. One human moment. If you don't think about anything else, just try to grab one human moment, even if that's you doing the work. And that's it. So I'll open it up to questions. If anybody has questions, comments, or anything, this is my contact information. Yeah, that's my website, but you feel free to reach out. I'd love for people to do the survey so that I can kind of refine this for future stuff too.
Well, that was very helpful, Dave. That was incredibly helpful. And that's what people are saying.
Oh, that's good. I'm going to
Any
stop sharing my screen here.
Okay. Any questions? Because we'd be happy to unmute you and allow you to ask your question, or we can read it if you like. Lots of quiet people. Oh, it's almost a full hour. It could be that they have to get on.
Yeah, I noticed that at one of the conferences, actually, I think it might have been over in Worcester, where a lot of people, it would take a little while. One person would ask a question, and that would start everybody going.
Oh, here
There's
we
the
go.
pro. Oh yeah,
You can see it.
yeah. I can see it here. Um, Isabella says, does the Pro RAW setting on Apple stop the sky exposure from being so intense? Yes. So if you take the Pro RAW, again, it's going to be like a 50 megabyte file, somewhere around there, 30 to 50 megabytes, as opposed to 1.5 to 2 megabytes. But it does let you it does let you alter it so that it's when you first take the photo, it might show up a little bit too intense. But if you go into the app, your photos at what is it? Yeah, it's just called Photos. And then you can edit. You know how you can crop and edit and like change the brightness and all that. You have a lot more flexibility, so you'll be able to bring that brightness slider down a lot more than you can in the JPEG, without it looking weird. That's the technical term.
Great. Here's one.
Oh, and also to end with that, there's a way. I think it's the ellipsis. I think it's there's something on there where you can export as a whatever you want, PNG or a JPEG. Once you're done with your edit there, make sure you export it as a JPEG or PNG, because if you try to share that raw file, not everybody's going to be able to see it, especially if they're in Windows. Apple lets you view raw files by default. So if you're on a Mac, you can just look at it in your Finder window. Windows Explorer doesn't do that. People are going to need an additional little plugin. And also JPEG is 2 megabytes versus 30. So, all right. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Elia? Is that right? Okay. It feels so awkward asking for photo consent when in the field. Have you found a go-to phrase that feels like it takes a little bit of the awkwardness away? Um, yes. So, uh, I like to tell people like, hey, I'm going to be taking some photos around here. Do you mind if I take your photo? Um, do you mind signing this? Because we're going to make you an if you become an Instagram star, this just means that, um, how do I put it? I usually tell people that, I'm just going to make them, maybe making them an Instagram star and I just want their consent, so, something like that is usually a little bit more fun than like, hey, I want to take your photo, but it all depends on the context. Of why you're there to take photos. Are they in the shot because they're involved in what they're doing, like maybe that weed invasive species pull? Most people that are looking to do that, they're okay with it. Or in my case, they'll usually say, "Yeah, everybody's okay with it. I don't want my photo taken," so I'll be like, "Okay, I just won't. I'll make sure not to include you." Um, the automatic file name on Apple phone does not include, this is Mary, sorry. The automatic file name on an Apple phone does not include the date. Is there a way to have that and automatic add that? Not that I'm aware of. I wish. Um, it is embedded in the metadata. So if you open up your Photos app right now and you take any photo that you're looking at and you swipe up, you're going to see this thing pop up that shows you the metadata, which is the date. Um, Usually the focal range that you shot it in. It'll show you all sorts of information. If you upload that into, um, if you're using something like Lightroom, that metadata will move with the picture. So you'll be able to search through Lightroom for date stuff, but there's no way that I'm aware of to actually embed that right into the image name. Yeah.
Any other questions? I got something blocking my screen. Lots of people are saying thank you.
Very welcome.
We're thrilled that we were able to present this today. We're thrilled that you could join us, David. And I hope we can work again with you in the future. And thank you, everyone, for attending, because I think we've all learned something. I need to try the 3-second, take the photo, 3-second wait, because now I know why sometimes I nail it and sometimes I don't. I have something to measure now.
Yeah, yeah. It's and the 3 seconds is just a good number to remember. Um, oh, someone if you don't mind, I'm just going to answer Teresa's question
Sure,
here.
please.
Um,
Yeah.
Teresa said, "Is there a way to edit sound out of a video?" Um, yes, depending on the program you're using. Um, if you're talking about editing all the sound, very easy in something like, oh, Final Cut just went underneath a paid program, or a subscription model. But there are different softwares that you can actually DaVinci Resolve, but that's free and it's very powerful, but it's harder to learn for a lot of folks. But yes, there is a way that you can do that. Um, if you're talking about taking out the whole thing, much easier than if you just wanted like a little portion of it. But yes, you can. Um, this is unrelated, but I did show a drone shot, and this is very important for everybody to know whether you're going to take the photos or you're going to hire somebody else. If you have anybody taking drone shots for you, please make sure that they have their certification, because if anybody is taking drone photography, video, um, for any organization, they need to have a Part 107 license within the United States or certification from the FAA. If they don't, you're in violation, and there's a lot of issues that could come up, and you don't want to be a part of that. So make sure that you ask them, because even if it's somebody on your team that says, "Oh yeah, I have a drone, I want to fly it recreationally," they can fly it no problem. But now, if it's for the furtherance of a business, we call it, um, if you're going to share those photos in any way for any organization, you have to have the Part 107. And I just want to make sure nobody gets bit in the butt by that.
Great. Thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And we'll have the recording available as soon as it's available. And we'll be putting it in a few days on our website. We have a web page for Lunch and Learns. And Dave, you mentioned that people could contact you for a copy of the slides, or if it's okay with you, you can think about it. We can make a PDF of your slides and post that as well.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I have the PDF already. So
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
that would be great. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thanks for your contact information if we have further questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure that I'll see you at the next MACC conference.
Great. Yes. February 28th,
Yeah.
2026. Here we come.
We're already there.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks for all the work you do.